Welcome to Feel the Heat, a 5 Reasons Sports Network Miami Heat podcast. Hosted by Allana Tachauer and Michael Christian. This is your one-stop listen for all things Miami Heat culture, past, present, and future, on and off the court.
What's up, y'all? Welcome to episode 28 of Feel the Heat. We are 4-0 in the preseason. Are we going undefeated? Mr. Michael, what are your thoughts?
How many more preseason games do we have?
That's a good question. 2?
I have to look this up. Hold on.
It might be 2 or 3.
So the Heat have 2 more preseason games. I just want to change something that I said in a previous episode, because in a previous episode, I said the Heat were going to go 98-0. I was wrong. I actually meant 104 and
of course, naturally,
because the 6 preseason games, obviously you have to add them in there. So
sure.
Yeah, 104-0, never losing. Never.
That will be a stat for the record books for sure. Honestly, though, I know it's preseason. We were just talking offline about people's overreactions to preseason, but like it would feel pretty good to go undefeated. Like that's just like a cool thing to have going into the season.
I mean, it just kind of shows that the depth that is here is pretty good. So shout out to Ethan J. Skolnick, always screwing about the depth being important. Well, depth looks much better now than it did before. You know, even for guys that are probably going to be spending a decent amount of time in the G League this year. Most of the guys, you know, that played the end of the game. What was it, last night against the Hornets?
Yep.
So they look good. The team looks good. They look fired up. They look together. There's just a different feel to it. I mean, Bleacher Report released their top 50 players, and I think that he had 3 in the top 40 because Kyle Lowry was 40th. Bam was like 22, I want to say. And then Jimmy was 14. It was something like that. So, I mean, there's just an energy there. The team looks rejuvenated. They look ready to go. Don't get me started on Baby Goat again, but sheesh, those busted up Nets better watch out.
Okay, so I mean, you've mentioned the depth. Is there anything else though that you feel has stood out to you in terms of preseason stuff so far?
I am going to give it to Tyler, that one, because this is not the time that we were needing it from him, right? Like he's come out, isn't he the number 1 scorer in all preseason basketball right now?
I think so.
And that's even coming with what, against the Hornets? He didn't play basically at all.
He did not have a great game against the Hornets, but it was bound to happen.
It was bound to happen eventually. It happens to everybody. Again, it's going to happen to Tyler more often than a lot of people are going to like. I'm not sitting here and saying that he's going to come into the season and be a 22 plus point per game scorer, because I think it's going to be a completely different role once the season actually gets going. But I mean, he's doing it and you can't discount it because it's against a lot of the starters from the other teams. So I really got to go with, for me, that big surprise is Tyler really showing out immediately. I thought it would kind of be a slow burn and build up. He blew up game 1 and he's kind of stayed there since. So good for him.
I feel like part of you just said that because you know Royal's listening.
Actually, and I'm going to be honest with you, I'm not thinking about Royal at all, or I wasn't until you brought him up. And now that you've brought him up, I do have to give Royal his credit. He did say that Tyler did not play well the other night and he was going after him, which is very Royal-like. So good for him, right? He is going back and forth it makes sense.
Back and forth, almost like he's flip-flopping, maybe? Is that the term you'd use?
Sure. I feel like you really want to get after him. I was trying to
listen, we've got Clutch Corner coming soon, so I'm going to take that time to do so, even though it's all with love. But
I mean, I'm never going to hear the end of this. I'm never going to hear the end of this from him, right? Because
probably not.
You two get into your little disagreements, and then one of you has a finishing one-liner where it's 2 to 3 words.
One of us.
Every once in a while, he shuts you down too. I'm just going to give him his credit.
I have yet to see that, but sure.
Okay, you are no perfect 1972 Dolphins either over here. Just I always shut it down. Every once in a while, he got you.
That's the term you use.
Let's be honest. He has always made this very valid point about you. You dodge questions like no other.
I know, and I'm great at it, and I will continue to do so.
Right, but you act like that's you winning, but then
of course
pointing
it's me
out
winning.
that you're dodging the question, and then you give no take at all.
I dodge it and I'm allowed to dodge it. And then we move on. So of course I have one.
I don't know. Look, you and I do this podcast together. If I had to pick one over the other, he and I, and you all know which one I'd pick over the other, but I'd rather not have to do that, right? This isn't Sophie's Choice. I'm good.
That is a very good book.
I didn't know it was a book.
Oh, Michael, you thought it was just a movie?
With Meryl Streep that I've never seen except for that one scene.
It's a great book. You should read it.
She should have just given up both of the kids, and then there's no guilt at all.
I mean,
just let them both
not wrong,
die, right? And then
this has taken a very dark.
Yeah, wait, let's
dark
go back.
And twisty
what
turn.
Have you liked about the preseason, ma'am?
Quarterback Kyle. I mean, those passes.
Can we not? Sorry, can we not?
Quarterback Kyle.
Term?
It's
no, I know. But
you're triggered because of the Dolphins.
Yeah, can we just say like
But if you notice, I actually didn't put that on the rundown because I didn't want to hurt you tonight.
No, I know, but you could have used the word facilitator.
I could have, but I tweeted quarterback Kyle, so I just wanted to stay consistent with what my takes were on Twitter.
Technically, so did the Heat too. So, who did it?
Oh,
first?
did they?
Yes.
I didn't even see that. But
do you not follow the Heat on Twitter? Oh, awkward.
Yeah, I don't follow the Heat on Twitter. That's what it is. Kind of like how you didn't follow.
Start
Jimmy
that rumor,
on
everybody. Nope, they didn't hear it because I spoke over you. Everybody, start that rumor. She's not following the Heat. Please continue.
Listen, no, Kyle's passes are ridiculous. His court vision is crazy. I think that even in a small sample size, not only because we've only had 4 games, but he obviously has not played, the amount of minutes that he's going to play in the regular season. But he has already made Bam a completely different player. And I think him and Bam and him and Jimmy, it's going to be so fun to watch. I think he was the perfect addition. And I know that maybe people wanted more from, the offseason, or they wanted a bigger start, whatever. Let's leave those narratives in the past. Kyle is exactly what we needed. And I feel like he's going to make such a huge difference.
Yeah, listen. I'm not saying that he's going to come in here and solve all of the problems that we've had. That would be ridiculous to say. Even one problem that I brought up before, which is, I know we can talk about it in a second, which is rebounding. I still really want to see this team get it together against one of those top caliber rebounding teams. Even the best team we've played so far this preseason, which was the Hawks, they didn't have Clint Capella that game. So even that one, from like an analyzing the rebounding game, I feel like you're not getting the full picture. But the facilitating, the point of attack defense, he's doing those better than a lot of others in the NBA could. And for his age and all the stuff he's been through, for him to be 40th on that Bleacher Report list, which there was a lot of things on that list I disagreed with, that still shows the kind of respect he demands and deserves. So listen, Kyle Lowry is going to be a godsend for this team. I am excited to have him here. And I think I think it worked out for the best that the Heat got him when we did. And I did want to ask you this, because the Heat almost traded for him last season. What would have been given up? We don't know for certain. There was a lot of talks going around. In my opinion, this is the best possible outcome, because as much as he lifts this team, and I'm going to shout out Alf from Miami Heat Beat, who he mentioned this, Kyle Lowry doesn't put this team to that next level last season because of the way everyone else was just worn out. Like, sure, they probably put up a better fight against the Bucks. I still don't think they win that series because Jimmy and Bam were just completely worn out. But do you think this was the best scenario? Maybe getting him last year, maybe there's a little bit more run, because again, this is just preseason. So what are your thoughts on that?
No, absolutely. I agree with you. Not to say that it wouldn't have made a difference, but for what, at that point we were so gassed. And, other teams like the Bucks and the Nets were looking so much better that I just don't think it would have been worth it. To your point, who knows what we would have had to give up. So I think patience definitely paid off in this situation. And I kind of feel the same way, in terms of Depot too, with kind of the timing and what we gave up, what we didn't, the fact that we were able to re-sign him for basically nothing. I just think that even though, fans wanted a change immediately, it was smarter to play the long game, because now, honestly, I know I had the Heat at number 3. We could take one of those top 2 spots. It obviously is going to depend what happens with the Knicks and the Bucks, but I just don't see like it being that far from a reality. I'm not guaranteeing anything. I know it's preseason, but I don't think it'd be that crazy.
Yeah, listen, and I'm going to toot my own horn on this one. And I know it's super early and I could end up being dead wrong. The Heat come out of the regular season and they look like a shell of what they were in the preseason. And it just all goes south real quick. But I've been saying for a while now, this team does have a lot of things that remind me of that 2020 bubble run team, right? There's just a lot of things about it that make sense. I think you have a rejuvenated point guard playing offense, which you had in Goran that year. You didn't have the year before. You have great point of attack defense, which Goran never really brought that. So that's just a whole new aspect coming into it. You've got guys like Markieff Morris and PJ Tucker who are going to come in and kind of do those Andre Iguodala, Jay Crowder roles. There's a few things that are different. Some players are going to improve. There are players that are just gone off of that team. I think it could be really similar. My caveat was always the rest of the East is what is stopping me from saying, oh, they'll go to the finals again, just like that team. But with the Nets being where they are right now, the Bucks, who knows? Maybe the Bucks don't come back as strong as they did. I mean, they had a lot of excellent performances in the playoffs from a lot of different players all around the same time. All it takes is those guys to just not be in sync for a little bit in the regular season. I still think they'll end up being the number one seed because I think they'll be the most consistent, but I think the Heat's chances are looking really good.
See, the thing with me is everyone keeps talking about how the Heat benefited from the bubble because that environment catered to their type of culture, the fact that they're all basketball all the time. They don't need those distractions. I kind of feel the same way about the Bucks. I think the asterisk here just was good for them. The Bucks came into a situation, it worked out. The Heat were exhausted. The Nets were dealing with some injuries. I'm not trying to take away from, Giannis is incredible. And I think there's some other guys on that team that really did play their roles perfectly. I'm not really going to give much credit to Bud because I still don't think he's a good coach, but I'm not saying they didn't put in the work. I just think that much like the bubble helped the Heat, I think the circumstances surrounding teams that were close to them last year helped the Bucks. And I don't see them repeating.
And even then with the Heat one, I think a lot of what helped the Heat out then was, I'm not even going to say it benefited Jimmy all that much. Jimmy's been in this league for a long time. I think he could play in an empty gym, fully packed gym. He's the same Jimmy, right? Bam, maybe a little bit, but he's been in Heat culture long enough that he kind of knows those atmospheres and everything. I think the big difference was Tyler and Duncan, right? And Duncan didn't play that great in the bubble necessarily, but those two guys who had never played those high marquee games were able to do it in an environment where it was just the game. It was just them. It was just their guys and the other team across from them. I think that's where benefited the Heat the most. And last season, I mean, you make a great point with the Bucks. In a season where everyone was exhausted because of the craziness that was the year before, the team that had incredible size, incredible endurance, and just this will to absolutely back you down till you had no energy left. Yeah, they just won the race. The whole season was a marathon. Every season is. They came into it healthier than every other team. They came into it more refreshed than most other contending teams. And they did the best they could. Even the Suns, right? The Suns had a team that was going to run you out of the gym because they weren't that tired, because they didn't have all the stuff from the previous year. It makes sense. I'm still not going to call it an asterisk here just because my personal philosophy is a season is a season. You can come up with whatever you want. It happens, right? The Heat won a shortened season after the lockout, and they won that championship. I'm not going to call it an asterisk. It is what it is. It happens. Everybody had the same situation. But those are really good points. And I think this year kind of all restarts. It all refreshes. It feels like a completely new NBA because I feel like we haven't seen an NBA like this in 3 years now.
Blessings. Honestly, like that's all I can say. The fact that basketball came back, period, changed the game. No pun intended for me. Like not having basketball during the roughest time in most of our lives was hard enough. But then the fact that, it wasn't really a full season and there was just so much going on that I think we're all welcoming, actual NBA basketball back. I will just say this. I know you're talking about rebounding. Is that kind of still what you think needs to be proven out of this game?
That's my biggest thing that I really want to see. I really want to see them handle rebounding and size because we have it. I'm not saying they can't do it before someone attacks me and says, oh, well, they have Yurtsevin now.
Don't
and
worry, someone's typing the comment.
Yeah. Michael Potter grabbed 17 rebounds in a preseason game. Cool beans. Look, I still don't know if I can trust it yet in those situations. And right now, the entirety of the NBA goes through Milwaukee.
Mm-hmm.
And the Heat stopped the Bucks before. Then they got absolutely stomped by the Bucks the year after. I literally can see it going either way. I really don't think the Heat would go and sweep the Bucks because I think the Bucks are much more improved than that season where we beat them in 5 games. But I could really see the series going 5 games for either team right now. I haven't seen them play against one another, but that's just the way these two teams are. One gets a leg up on the other, they get that confidence, and they just take off. Heat had it in 2020. Bucks had it in 21. I mean, it might be a collision course between those two teams at some point in the playoffs. Let's see who wins the 22 matchup.
See, for me, I don't yet fully know what we're getting out of Keefe. And I know that people are slandering him, and I don't mean it that way because I think that it's too soon. I think he's still acclimating to not just the offense, but the team as a whole. He did come off an injury last year, so I'm not saying that, I am putting him down. I'm just not sure what he's going to bring to the table. I think people might also kind of feel the same way about PJ, but for me, PJ's role is a little bit more defined. I can kind of see, even if he's not necessarily excelling at what he needs to right now, I can see what that's going to be. With Keefe, I just don't know what that is yet. Not to say that they're not going to figure it out and he has plenty of time, but I think right now he's my biggest question mark.
Fair. And listen, I love the guy, but we can say a lot of the same things about Depot because we've seen 4 games with him.
Mm-hmm.
What he can do in this team if he's healthy and he's playing in the right spots is amazing. We haven't really seen it yet. And even when we did, it's not this same team, right? It wasn't with PJ. So we got to see a little bit of that. And with PJ, listen, man, you stand in a corner and then you go annoy their superstar. That's it. I don't care about anything else. You do those 2 things. You don't even have to make the 3-pointers in that corner. If he shoots,
and you give us outfits to talk about.
Yeah, I mean, outfits that Allana totally dies over. But look, we're talking about PJ. We're talking about Markieff. We talked about Kyle Lowry, all people that the Heat brought in this past offseason. There's been a ton of lists that have come out recently. All the anonymous things decided to start coming out now, and all the GM polls and, about how Bam is probably worse than Tice, according to some dumbass in Boston. The Heat are getting a heck of a lot of recognition to the point where I think, Spo was voted number 1 coach.
Mm-hmm.
The Heat was ruled the best management in the NBA, and they were deemed to have had the best offseason, even better than your beloved Lakers.
My beloved, come on now.
I mean, it's not wrong. Do you think the Heat deserve all of this? And what's causing it all to come out like this? Because there's no way they saw these 4 preseason games and they're like, oh yeah, they got it exactly right. Like, where's it coming from?
I think they absolutely deserve it all. I am surprised though. I feel like the Heat are overlooked year after year after year, whether that be the actual roster or Spo or management. But I feel like fans have just learned to love it. There's that chip on the shoulder. The team definitely has a chip on their shoulder. So I feel a little weird. Like, I don't know what to do when we're given our flowers. I don't think it'll keep up. And I know I mentioned this in the Alex Dano show too. I feel like it's happening now and then the season's going to start. And I don't know, people love to hate on the Heat, right? So I feel like that's going to start happening again. But it is a little bit odd.
It is incredibly odd. And if they were looking for any reason to kind of dislike and start going after this team, I will say there is a certain guy who has given them a ton of fuel to start putting these lines in certain places. I'm just going to take it back to Baby Goat here for a second, because on the Bally Sports podcast, Miami Mic'd Up, I believe is the name of it, hosted by Jeremy Taché, who we've had on the show before. Make sure to check out. Yeah.
Big things, both professionally and personally, because he just got engaged.
He did. Big shout out to Jeremy on that one. He interviewed a bunch of the players. He talked to Tyler, and Tyler said specifically when talking about his expectations on himself, he put his name in the same category as players like Luka Doncic and Trae Young. That is now getting picked up like crazy, to the point where the moment we started hitting record on this podcast, I checked our Heat thread for 5 reasons, and ESPN even had that exact quote. people dislike Tyler for a lot of reasons.
Mhm.
I think his personality rubs a lot of people the wrong way, and that is their prerogative. You have the right to feel however you want about him. This is definitely going to start up a lot of that again, because they're going to start saying, haha, you think you're those two guys? Get out of here. Like, he's setting that bar for himself. Do you think he's setting himself up for failure on this one? Or are you fine with what he said?
If he's willing to take the criticism and kind of the consequence, for lack of a better term, of saying that, then by all means say it. If that's what you believe, then, I'm someone who loves confident people. I think that, people who believe in themselves often go a lot further. Is it a big claim? Absolutely. Do I think that he maybe shouldn't have said it, just from the standpoint of, he's finally, to your point, looking really good on the court. He seems focused, and now it's going to take away from that. Yeah. But at the end of the day, if he's willing to take the criticism, then that's what it is. Maybe his mindset has shifted, and maybe that, he now is going to use that criticism to fuel better play, because I think last year it got to his head. I think him and Duncan were both not playing well around the trade deadline, because there were all these kind of trade rumors coming out and narratives that maybe the team, would shop them both. But hey, if now he's using the hate as motivation, great for him. It was definitely a bold statement, though.
Yeah, and that's the one thing, right? Like, I think this team likes to be in that position. And you mentioned it earlier. They just like doing it. I mean, we've heard them refer to dogs. And when people say dogs, obviously they're talking about, like, fiery energy, but it really does originate a lot from like that underdog persona, that you don't believe in us, we're going to show you why you should. But then I don't think they like having people believe in them. Like, even Jimmy Butler doesn't seem like the kind of guy that sits there and is like, man, I hope that they rank me in the top 5 players in the NBA this year. I feel like he's the kind of guy that sits there and says, oh, they're coming out with rankings, I hope I'm below 20 just so that I can show them. Right.
Oh, absolutely.
It really like fuels him. So all of these accolades coming out, I don't care, because I don't think they care. And to me, I go how the Heat go. And if they're saying none of that matters until we get a championship, that's literally all that matters. In that kind of, looking at it that way, the Heat are underdogs. They are, because nobody's seen this team in the regular season. Nobody's seen this team against the Bucks, who are the ones they have to run through. The Nets, even if Kyrie isn't there, still have Harden and KD. That is not a team to be messed with. They are going to be underdogs for a long ways. And I'm excited to see that fight, because I think they're going to surprise a lot of people, even with the lofty expectations a lot of people already have.
Another team that's also going to surprise a lot of people, and let me tell you, I have to say, they are looking freaking good, are the Chicago Bulls. But DeMar DeRozan made an interesting comment the other day, basically talking about that he did not like the narrative of him taking less money to join Kyle in Miami. He said he felt disrespected by it. Do you see where he's coming from? Do you think that's childish? Do you think he should have even brought this up?
I honestly think coming out and saying that is stupid, personally. Right? You have a right to feel however you want. If you don't want to take less money because you think you are worth more, that's fine. But the narrative, I feel like, was never, oh, he's willing to take less money because of the way he views himself. No, it was, he was willing to take less money because he wanted, one, to play with one of his best friends in Kyle Lowry, and two, to have a better chance of winning. I mean, nobody's seen these teams in the regular season, but I think you and I can sit here and honestly say the Heat have a much better chance at winning the NBA Finals than the Chicago Bulls do.
Yeah, I mean, the Bulls look great, and I think it's super exciting. But yeah, there's no comparison between them. I also feel like it's not really on brand for him to come out and kind of make these statements. So I'm wondering if there was some sort of, I don't know, mix up or kind of poor communications going on there. Because when I saw that, I was pretty surprised that he would be someone to kind of come out with the story.
It was a really baited question, that's for sure. Like, they definitely were trying to get him to say something along those lines. And it didn't take off that much, but it took off enough. I mean, it came across my eyes. I saw it and I'm like, I mean, nobody's trying to insult you. We know you're worth a lot, but we think if you take less money, we can probably do more things with this team. I mean, look at what Dwayne Wade sacrificed for years, and DeMar DeRozan has never even come close to reaching Dwayne Wade status.
I also just don't feel like him ending up in Miami ever really stuck. like people wanted it and we kind of, toyed with the idea, but I don't think it was this huge narrative that was coming out and the expectation was for him to actually sign here, which is another reason why I thought that statement was bizarre. He's looked great in Chicago. I'm sure he's happy to be there. The whole thing when I read that, I just didn't understand why he was coming out about it.
Yeah, it kind of came out of nowhere. And, speaking of people that came out of nowhere, Turk Novitskiy did absolutely come out of nowhere. Nobody like Heat fans didn't really know about this guy. Like maybe you'd heard about him once, but like, come on. Like it wasn't until the California Summer League where the dude was crushing it. And everyone was like, oh, we did it again. We found a great player out of nothing. Yurt's looking great.
Mm-hmm.
He's looking very good. I was able to see him in person at Summer League. He looked dominant then. The one thing I had with him was size, right? Defensively, I think a really strong, large center would be able to overpower him, and he might not be able to keep up as well. But even then, it's something he's going to work on, and he's going to get better at it. The Heat are going to get him in the right shape to do all of that. Do you think Yurtseven deserves more minutes than, say, a Mr. Dedmon?
See, that's tough because the potential of Yurt maybe does. If Yurt comes out on a nightly basis like he did last night, I think it would be nice to have someone younger, fresher, more athletic out there. That was a very small sample size. I think he still has a ways to go. I think he can get his weight up a little bit. I think he needs to obviously learn, offensive and defensive schemes. I think he just needs to gel with the team a little bit more. And also the guys he was out there with in a regular season game, it would not be the case. The kind of, for lack of a better term, kind of garbage minute guys. And I don't mean that in any sort of way, but
you're calling these guys garbage? How rude.
We thought we were going to lose the game. Props to them because they held on and we won. But he is not going to be playing alongside the people that he did last night. So for me, it is too soon to say that. However, if this is the Yurt that comes out on a nightly basis and he can keep it up, I don't know. Dedmon's energy is unparalleled. I think he has been a great addition. I think he clicked with the team right away. We obviously brought him back for a reason. But I don't know. I think in time, Yurt might have an advantage.
Yeah, I think he does have the advantage. I think he's a longer-term solution than Dedmon.
Mm-hmm.
I think it'll be really interesting to see how the minutes play out throughout the season. I think it also does depend on the matchup a lot, right? I mean, if you're playing a team that isn't really that post-oriented, isn't that big on like having those big bodies inside, I think I'm fine with let's get Yurt more minutes, right? I think he's going to be a little bit more useful in those moments. Mm-hmm. If you're playing a team like, and I always go back to it, but I mean, they are the team right now. If you play a team like the Bucks, I'm not sure how much I want Yurt out there compared to a Dedmon, just because I do really want a bit more of that defensive presence. And right now, I think Dedmon has the leg up. Maybe not from a pure blocks standpoint, but I think just the presence inside, he has the leg up. So for that reason, I think it's going to be really matchup based.
Mm-hmm.
But if Yurt can really prove it against some of these tougher teams, I think unfortunately you're looking at Dedmon losing a lot of minutes. And that sucks to say because Dedmon, I mean, I think we all love him. I think He's been a great addition since the moment we got him. He's fit in perfectly, and it'll suck to see his minutes go down. But if it's for Yurt, I think I'm okay with it.
I also, though, think we need to keep him on experience. And to your point, matchup wise, Yurt can come in against teams that probably we would have no problem beating. But I think in terms of kind of, a team like the Bucks, Dedmon has that experience over him. And so I think Yurt needs to get those minutes in. He needs to get that time. He just needs to get used to playing on a bigger stage. And I think if he can do that, to your point, it is a longer term solution. But I will take him looking great so far, and I hope it keeps up.
Yeah. I mean, hopefully he looks great, and hopefully this next player continues to look bad and continues to be hella passive. Ben, what adjective do I want to use? Ben, step over me Simmons. That's what I'm going to call him.
I don't even know here's the thing. I actually have no idea what's going on. And this is one of the strangest sagas that I can remember in recent history in the league. The fact that the team didn't know that he came back and was taking a COVID test for them. I just don't understand. Like, who is communicating? What has happened? The guy said that they were going to fly out to LA to see him. This man sold his house, and now all of a sudden he's back, going to rejoin the likes of Embiid, who have publicly spoken out against him. And then the team they're not even welcoming him back because they didn't even know he was there.
I love it.
I don't hate it. I'm just ultra confused.
I love it because it proves that the Sixers are the trash organization that we've been calling them out to be for years. Okay. Trust the process. This is your process. This is where it's gotten you. You've made nothing but bad decisions. And as a fan of another team who tried to trust the process and has made nothing but bad decisions, looking at you, Dolphins, you suck. It's fun watching other teams go through the same struggle. Like it literally doesn't feel like the Sixers can fix this, right? Because it feels like,
what is there to fix? Like,
no, but I'm talking about the team on a whole, right?
Oh no, it's a mess. The whole thing's a mess. This is like one of those like headphones that are so tangled that there's no starter or end point. Like you have to toss them. What are you going to do? You have to start from scratch. I don't know where they go from here.
If you ask me right now, right, I'm the GM of a team, and you tell me I could have Ben Simmons on my team and all it would take is a single Taco Bell crunchy taco, I'm taking the crunchy taco over Ben Simmons. Okay.
I would take that taco for you to eat.
I don't see, number one, I think Ben Simmons can be a good player. Don't get me wrong. You have to build the right team around him. But that is my issue with Ben Simmons is you have to dedicate your team to him, not anybody else.
Well, also his work ethic is non-existent. He wants to do nothing to work on his game. He is like, I'm great defensively.
No, what are you talking about? He shoots a bunch of threes in the offseason and then takes 2 during the season.
I don't know what's wrong with him. I don't know what's wrong with his agent. I don't know what's wrong with the organization. It is dumpster fire. The fact that I had people tell me that Philly is still going to come out better off than Miami. What's wrong with you?
Who the hell told you that?
I'm telling you, there have been people who are like, oh, well, I'm not really sure. I feel like Miami's going to come in fourth because Philly's still around. Philly's around where?
You got some dumbass people in your comment section.
I mean, NBA Twitter hit or miss sometimes.
Like, oh, yeah, because is Tobias Harris still there?
I think so.
Yeah, because Tobias Harris is really going to elevate your team. Right? Like, Embiid is going to stay healthy the entire time. Sure. Yeah. Wink, wink. That ain't happening.
Well, unfortunately, they're not the only messy team right now because honestly, I have to applaud Brooklyn, though. The fact that they put their foot down and said that Kyrie is not going to be invited to anything. To me, it would have been just the complete wrong message to let him join and pick and choose what he's doing. I also think that for them, which I don't want them to succeed, but I think being in limbo, the team would have been worse off. Having Kyrie come in and out, the fact that, they put their foot down and he's out. The question, though, do you think he will cave and get the vaccine?
I really don't know. I think that is a big part of what makes Kyrie is no one can predict what he's going to do next, right? Like the dude will come out and speak to an arena or to a room full of media people and say, I'd love to be back here if you all will have me. And then a few months later, be like, trade me the F out of here. I'm out. Granted, it's Boston. I don't blame him for wanting to get out of Boston. But it's just one of those things that I don't know what he's going to do. I could see both sides of it. I could see him caving and being like, I'm going to do it because I want to fight for my team. Because he's never struck me as the kind of guy that doesn't like his team, right? He doesn't seem like a bad.
I just don't think he cares. I think he's very selfish. And I think he's going to retire. I don't think he's going to get the vaccine. There was a report that came out that he never said he was anti-vax. He just doesn't. He's fighting for people who are losing their jobs because they're not vaccinated. Sir, what are you talking about?
I missed the flight because of people like that. So I'm very upset.
To me, he's all over the place. They're better off, honestly, without him. I know people are now trying to say the Nets won't be as good. Honestly, I think without the hoopla, they're going to be better off. They'll figure out a way to fill that void. I don't know what's going to happen with him. I could see him retiring. And honestly, I hope he does. Like, I've kind of had enough of him stirring up trouble. I don't want to talk about him anymore. I want Kyrie out of the league and he can go and do whatever it is that Kyrie does on his own.
I don't think I need to add anything to that because that was a spicy meatball of takes. And so we'll leave it at that. Kyrie, if you're listening, Allana says, get the fuck out. Okay. Last thing, little bit of nepotism going on over in Utah. You know,
we both love and hate to see it.
Yeah, it's one of those things where it's like, lol, it happens everywhere.
Yeah.
I mean, the Heat have done it too.
Yeah.
Like, it just happens. But Zaire Wade now has a spot on the Salt Lake City Sums. I don't even know what it is. It doesn't matter. Salt Lake City. Nobody cares about that city. So the Salt Lake City's whatever in the G League. Zaire Wade is now on the team.
Mm-hmm.
Papa owns the Utah Jazz, so this makes a lot of sense. Listen, don't get me wrong. I've always been on board. To me, I'm like, take all the kids. I want Bronny. I want Zaire.
Oh yeah, Bronny's coming soon.
Give me all of them on the Heat, just for the heck of it, right? Because I think it would be a good time. I'm not saying Zaire's a bad player. I haven't watched enough of his gameplay to really make a completely definitive take on him, but he doesn't really seem like an NBA level player to me. And I don't think that's insulting because to be an NBA level player, you have to be the top point something % in the world, which is impossible to do almost in anything, right? So that's not a knock on him, but that's a whole other stratosphere, and I'm not sure he's there. Maybe the G League brings it out of him, and he shows up and he shows out. This just seems kind of like all right, son, I'm going to throw you a bone, go to the G League, make something happen.
I don't want to comment on his play because, to be honest, I've watched little to nothing, so I don't actually know how I feel about that. But it doesn't bother me. To your point, it does happen everywhere. I also will say that I don't believe Wade wouldn't put him to work. I think Wade expects a high level of professionalism and work ethic and drive from him. So if he's not there yet, I think at least he's giving him the chance to get there. I would love for him to be in Miami though. Like, how fun would that be?
Oh, I think it'd be great. That would make me so happy, right? And then like imagine at some point down the line, Dwayne is sitting there watching his son's jersey get retired literally right next to him. It would be beautiful. I just, for me, it's from what I've seen, he doesn't look NBA level to me. I am no advanced scout. I am not the foremost.
Michael now recruits for the league.
Professional. I mean, I recruit for my NBA 2K league team. I mean, come on. Not really. I don't even play 2K well enough because I always get creamed. I just think that's a whole different level, and he hasn't shown that to me, right? Like, he didn't get that much playing time at Sierra Canyon. Sierra. What's it called? The place in Utah with Bronny. You don't remember the high school that they were?
No,
all
I remember.
Together?
I remember that they were together, but I don't know what it's called.
I know there was Sierra in there, and I'm pretty sure there was Canyon. But
I think they had black jerseys. That's all that comes to mind.
I don't think Sierra Canyon sounds right to me. Maybe it is. But he didn't even get that much playing time there. Granted, that was one of the best high schools in the nation. Mm-hmm. He was behind a bunch of guys who went on to really, really prestigious universities. But that kind of shows where he's at. And then he had to go somewhere else. He tried to take the Donovan Mitchell route. I got to see how it works out. I hope he is great. I really do. I'm just not sure he's NBA level. But please, please, please prove me wrong, Zaire. I would love it.
That's a positive note to end this on. Any last words before the Heat play again?
104, no. Book it. And wait, hold on. My Eastern Conference Finals predictions looking mighty fine.
Good night, y'all. Thanks for listening to Feel the Heat. Can't get enough of your hosts? Follow Allana at Allana Tachauer, TACHAUER, and Michael at Michael, 5 RSN on Twitter and Instagram. And don't forget to subscribe.